At this point, honestly, I think most Cloud9 fans think that I legitimately hate them. The amount of times that I've seen it across social media when I'm not even talking about them versus times where I actually am talking about them, people just genuinely think that I cannot stand the org. And honestly, I said that I didn't, and that remains true for the most part, but I didn't realize there was an unending sore that still remains in my heart, specifically because of Cloud9, and something that, no, I'm never going to be able to get over.
He's not going to get traded out as well. Karma doesn't get the second player coming and challenge over top. Formal's going to be able to help him out. Karma going for the kill. Formal up to you. 1v1 situation. It's all coming over. And with the 1v1 Optic Gaming, we will see you fudging later.
This is Cloud9's Call of Duty team from 2016 and Black Ops 3. Yes, a slightly outdated game at this point, but it was the last time that Cloud9 was in Call of Duty, featuring some personalities that, quite frankly, they hated Optic. And if you don't know, I've been an Optic fan since 2013. This was supposed to be the year that Optic finally got their championship, that everything was supposed to click. And Cloud9, for whatever reason, just came in, we had a bad weekend, and the fact that they had aches on the squad was just, it still rubs me the wrong way. They beat us in a very close 5-game series at Champs, knocked us out of the tournament, but it's not like I would hate them for that. Obviously, it's a very sad moment in Optic history, but Cloud9 didn't even stay in the esport. Didn't care about Call of Duty and didn't care about sticking through what was clearly going to be the harder times going forward, and didn't care enough about the game and the esport to make it a thing long term. So go figure, whenever I come into League of Legends and Optic is now in the LCS and we're facing off against Cloud9, and this is like Cloud9's game, yeah, I was a little bit vindictive and just wanted to kick their ass, and we never did. This COD Champs moment was one of the few times in esports history that you form a permanent rivalry against somebody and just absolutely hate them, and you will never be able to get over it. So why do I bring this up? Well, they're back. Cloud9 has announced that they are taking over the NYSL, or the New York Subliner, spot in the Call of Duty League starting next year. I think the branding might have even started this year, if I'm being honest. And to explain to you why this is important, we kind of have to go back a little bit. You see, much like the LCS, the Call of Duty League decided to follow in Overwatch's footsteps and franchise and sell off spots for various different cities across the US and Europe, notably the London Royal Ravens, the Paris Legion at the time, both of them gone. But Activision forced billionaire owners to come in. In this case, we're talking about the Wilpons, the family that owns the New York Mets, came in, forked up tens of millions of dollars to join the Call of Duty League and formed a company called Andbox. For those that are obviously familiar with the Overwatch League, this was the New York Excelsior, their then subsidiary team, the New York Subliners. You see the branding that they went with. They were supposed to be New York's team, and honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of excited that something like this would happen. As an Optic fan, it's not like I'm ever gonna be a fan fully of New York's team, but hey, if it gives Call of Duty events in the city, then yeah, that's a good thing. As somebody who obviously eats, sleeps, and breathes live events, which, speaking of, we have our LCS Watch Party in a few days, next week actually, I thought this would end up being a good thing. But the problem was, honestly, company wasn't well run. It was another example of one of those just billionaire playground things where they just throw money at it, but there's no underlying passion, clearly. You can sit here and say that, sure, there were probably some people in the subliners, especially players and management, that cared, but there were no real content creators that kind of came out and really made a name for themselves. The expectations were way too high given the dollar values that were in this from the beginning, that they were never going to be able to reach those peaks in 5 years, especially whenever COVID hit the year after and pretty much shut everything down. And once COVID ended and everything started coming back, or not even ended, but just events started coming back in 2021, they didn't even try. They honestly didn't even try. I've actually got a little bit of personal history with this org because I actually snuck into their launch party back in 2018 or 2019, whenever it was. It was this big event centered around the Fortnite World Cup, and everybody was there, including the big name of the guy who was running Epic Games at the time. I can't remember. It was Jeff something. But I got in, I said hi to Golden Boy, got a bunch of swag out of the event, and it was I don't know, it felt very corporate-y, but at the same time it was interesting. You could tell, there were the young people, the gamers there, that were there to have fun, play the big Pac-Man that was there, but then there were the corporate people that were just there to talk business. It was a weird party. Vibes were, I'll tell you right now, not many people were there for Call of Duty. It was mostly Overwatch. But I never really got the impression that the org kind of embraced everything New York and didn't invest the time and resources that it actually takes to become New York's team. I mean, you have to consistently have events with people there, consistently get in front of fans to be able to develop it, because in New York, at least, like, people are used to having that in-person element more than most, because you have public transportation that's accessible everywhere. Like, we just have that expectation. The FGC is incredibly popular here for a reason. Why? Because you have a bunch of in-person events that you can go to. You have tournaments at Brookland and OSNYC. You had stuff at Waypoint Cafe. We expect things in person here. Online doesn't cut it. We want to meet up with other people and have a good time. When you see Side Talk and all their stuff popping off at Knicks games, it's like, that's what we want. That is like the quintessential New York sports energy. And Ambox and the NYXL and New York Subliners were not delivering that whatsoever. So honestly, for the last year, I've been calling for them to finally leave, or at least sell their spot. Not that they haven't had a good roster. Obviously, they won Call of Duty champs last year, and they just won the most recent major going into champs. So it's not like they're struggling in terms of performance, but like, again, when you're winning like that, when you have this good of a roster, you would expect more things to come of that and a fan base to grow, especially when you have 8 million people in the city. And they didn't really do anything with it because they didn't care. So I was waiting for the day that they would sell, and they did. And unfortunately, it goes to the one org that I did not want it to go to, which is Cloud9, of course. The org that knocked Optic out of champs way back when, and that finally came crawling back to Call of Duty because, you know what, they see it as probably one of the best North American esports at the time, arguably bigger than the LCS in terms of a domestic product, and it's just like, of course it's them. But here's the thing. As much as I have disdain for Cloud9, they have the potential to actually do something here. Because regardless of whether Andbox didn't put in the money for this, Cloud9 has the resources to do this and actually make New York City's Call of Duty scene start to pop off. You could become New York's team. Now, there is a rumor, apparently, that teams will not be required to have the city-based affiliation next year. Personally, I think that's a dumb move for some orgs. Sure, for Optic and for FaZe, they're big enough that they don't need the affiliation. You don't need to be called Optic Texas. You can just call yourself Optic Gaming and then base yourself in Texas, and that's fine. For Cloud9, you can't tell me that NYC9 doesn't go hard. You see, regional-based ties are one of the only ways that you can overcome the popularity chain. That is, when people go online and try and find orgs, the same way that I've tried to get into somebody for Call of Duty, Optic was the big one. They were the first people I went to watch content whenever 2013 was around and I was trying to get into the esport. Then I fell in love with Scump, and then it went from there. So everybody's going to go to the popular people first. The way you overcome that is by having a local tie, something that can appeal to me as an individual, not just like the mass online like marketing that's out there. You put something in New York, I'm more likely to attend than just seeing something online, having another event and more content out there. That's how you overcome the deficit. And I don't care how big of an organization Cloud9 is outside of Call of Duty. They are not big enough to overcome the green wall deficit in Call of Duty. So embrace New York. As much as that kills me, Cloud9 better embrace New York and actually keep that part of their branding if they were smart, because you have every chance to come and take over the city, because nobody else has ever done a thing here, has really taken over the city well. And all it takes is one team to come in and give us the resources that we need, and I promise you the city will give back to you tenfold. There's a reason why Riot is hosting their Valorant Finals watch party with Tarek locally here, because they know there's a local audience and Tarek can obviously help bring it. For Cloud9, you have like so many resources at your hand. You could make this amazing, but it's just a matter of whether they choose to do so or not. It's annoying for me because every team that I like is not in New York. Optic obviously down in Texas, 100 Thieves out in LA, and then Cloud9 in New York, really? But regardless, it's a good thing for the scene. I am happy that Cloud9 is back in Call of Duty. I am happy that we can get retribution on that specific moment from way back in 2016. That will be nice, since I never got that revenge in the LCS. And maybe that might come this weekend. For those that don't know, Call of Duty Champs in the final tournament of the Call of Duty season is happening this upcoming week. The only way that Optic and the Subliners face each other is if they face each other in winners finals or potentially in the losers bracket, because they are on opposite sides. It is full double elimination with a best of 7 final, unlike League of Legends. It might be never mind, yeah, it's a best of 9 grand final. Personally, as happy as I am that Cloud9's back in Call of Duty and it raises the awareness for everybody, I don't want to see them go back to back in champs. God, dude, if we get knocked out by them again, I swear.